Welcome back to the podcast. We're back in the UK still, and something strange has happened this week. I'm actually calling the UK home for the very first time in a long time. I'm actually loving being back. It's been fantastic. I feel quite settled here, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously I am going back to Bali, but definitely my mindset on being home has changed. There we go again. It feels weird calling it home, but this episode is going to be about taking responsibility, and I think that is so important for anyone to do, and I believe also that it is the key to growth, because if you don't take blame for your actions, then you're always going to think that you're going to be right, and if you always think you're right, you're never going to try and grow, because if you're right, why you don't need to grow. So recently I've been in a situation where it's been building up for quite a few months actually, if not more, where I feel like I needed to apologise for the way that I acted in a certain situation, but maybe it was a bit cowardly that I didn't sooner, or maybe I didn't even realise that I was in the wrong for such a long time. But when you get to a point where you do realise, okay, these are the faults that I had, rather than keep that to yourself, telling the person that you've done wrong is going to be a powerful situation. Like I remember when I did counselling about 4 years ago now, my counsellor Jenny, big up yourself, she said to me that there's going to come a point where you want to confront the people that have done you wrong, but also admit your flaws and your shortcomings. And I did that a couple of times when I was back then, 4 years ago, and I remember the feeling that I had. It was like it's kind of like a weight is lifted off your shoulders, because you're letting that person know that you wasn't perfect. And believe it or not believe it or not, but before I battled with my mental health, I wouldn't say I believed I was perfect, but I always thought that I was right. And I feel like that held me back for so long, because as I say, if you can't admit where you are wrong, you can't learn from it, you can't grow from it. So in this episode, I really want to talk about taking responsibility, whether that is in relationships, that doesn't necessarily need to be romantic, but like with your family, your friends, it could be situations. For example, myself with Australia, it'd be quite easy for me to say, and although I do put a lot of onus on, yes, the visa agent that I used did have my pants down and I took his advice, but if you listen to that sentence again, I took his advice, right? It was my decision to click the button that I clicked, even though there was clearly doubt in my head about what the answer should be, because otherwise I would never have asked him. So I take full responsibility of the fact that I messed up my visa situation in Oz. And without doing that, if I just place the blame on the visa agent, oh, I'm so unlucky, he's a dickhead, blah, 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 that's just a pure victim mentality. It's like the world is completely against you and why is life so unfair? But when you take responsibility for your actions, it's almost as if you regain control of the situation, because you're accepting that you were at fault. And when you can accept that you're not always right, or you're not God, I do have this saying where people have a God complex because they just think that everything they do is the best thing ever and everyone else should just get on with life how they live. But when you accept that you are in the wrong, you're going to open up so many different pathways to growth that allow you to move forward in life and improve every aspect of your life, because things that are out of your control, that is pretty annoying really. So you want to control as much as you can. So rather than hoping, let's say it is a romantic relationship, if you was to go end something with your boyfriend or girlfriend and then go into the next relationship thinking, well, I hope that they're not like this or like that, rather than thinking, well, what did I do wrong in that relationship? What did I do right in that relationship? Okay, well, let me right my wrongs. Because you've taken responsibility, you're going to turn up into the next relationship as a much better person. So you can either sit in this victim mode, which honestly, I don't think there's anything that pisses me off more on this earth than someone that just plays the victim and why always them and all this bollocks, because that is exactly what it is bollocks. Like, you're not a victim, you're just not willing to look at yourself and do the work that you need to do to grow. And that doesn't necessarily just mean in a relationship, that could be in a job. You might hate every single job that you go to, but if you keep going to the same jobs that you hated before, you've got to take responsibility for that. Do you know what I mean? If you keep entering situations with friends that you know make you feel shit, it's not, oh, they're not the bad person, you're just an idiot for spending time with people that make you feel shit. So take responsibility of that, and you can learn, okay, well, it is me that's putting myself into these situations, so then I can just pivot, stay away from them, and then bosh, you've already grown there, because you're taking responsibility for your part to play in that situation and moving forward. Not only that as well, when you take responsibility and you communicate to someone that you understand where you're at fault, rather than saying, well, you do this, you do that, this is what you do, that blah, 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 blah. If you just like, nah, hands up, I fucked up, I wasn't right in that situation, then straight away, you're gonna feel so much better about yourself. And you're not doing it to feel good, to be like, oh, well, I'm a higher power now because I feel great. You're doing it because you're getting that weight off your chest. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people to do because they're so proud, they've got huge egos. But the reality is if you think something and you want to take responsibility for it, why not tell the person that you've potentially done wrong? Because ultimately, you never know what they're thinking. They might think that you think that they're the worst person on earth, when the reality is that's not the case at all. And you do understand that you had a part to play in every relationship, in every situation, because everything is a two-sided thing. Yeah, you've got your part that you add to it, and then whatever else comes in from the other side. So you're going to feel great after taking responsibility. Like, I remember there was 2 situations when I was going to my counselling where I had these sort of conversations with people that I felt that, one, I had done wrong, but also they'd done me wrong. And what I think is really key and important when you do go into these situations is you can't expect the other person to come back to you and feel the same. You can't expect them to take responsibility for your actions. For example, I had one person in my life that I felt that they'd done me wrong or had added to the fact that my mental health was in such a bad spot. But when I went into the conversation with them, there was not one point where I thought, oh yeah, you're going to apologise to me. Not a chance. I was like, I'm going to say what I want to say. If you don't feel the same, that is absolutely fine. And leaving that, they didn't say that take any responsibility. They just was like, oh yeah, well your head was a bit fucked up. But for me, that didn't bother me because I was like, well, I've got off my chest what I wanted to say, what I wanted to take responsibility for. And finally, when you do tell someone else that you accept the blame or you notice what you did wrong in that situation, it's going to make you feel so much better. It's going to make them feel so much better because they're not going to be questioning, am I this person that is X, Y, and Z? Whereas if you communicate clearly about your shortcomings and take that responsibility, they're going to feel a lot better about themselves. And in my opinion, why would you not want to give that to someone? That if you know you've done someone wrong, why wouldn't you want to admit that? You need to drop your pride, your ego, and just be honest and just own your truth. Right, I've got to, I'm going to leave the pod there now. because the battery's dying, so hopefully I can wrap this up. But as always, please like, subscribe and give it a 5-star rating. I know that was a bit rushed at the end, but I've just done 10 minutes, so there's no way I'm not getting it out. Hope you enjoyed that. Please drop a comment on what you want the next pod to be, and of course I'm going to spit bars on it. But anyway, I'll catch you next week.